What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining the Discord meeting. We're going to be going over volume and price action today. It's going to be a short meeting, so make sure you pay attention. If you want to be a part of these Discord meetings, or if you're just watching this at a later time, go ahead and click the More button down below in the description section. Click the link tree. You can hit that like, subscribe, but you can join the Discord channel down there. There's plenty of stuff to click on down there. So check it out if you find at all that this is educational or entertaining whatsoever. We're gonna jump right into it. What's going on? Dan, Bob, Dan, Predator, Jimmy, Norm, it's good to see you guys. Let's get right into this. I decided, guys, today that I wanted to go over volume and price action. And of course, if you guys have any questions or anything that you want to tell me that you found out with price action, so anybody listening to this at a later time, that they can learn from it. So I'm gonna start by reading exactly like verbatim, so that way nothing gets missed. It's not me kind of bouncing all over the place. Why volume is good for chart analysis and why there might be some reasons why it's kind of dirty, as I like to call it. Sometimes volume, when you're trying to read it, gets a little mucky, gets a little dirty, and it can be interpreted a little weird or hard to interpret, okay? So I'm just gonna read this, and then that way we have a better understanding, and then I'm gonna give you some examples, and then we're gonna kind of go over it if there's any questions and stuff. So why is volume good for chart analysis? Confirmation of price movements. Now, I tell you guys this all the time. That's why we like to zoom in on a 5-minute chart, because if you're deciding that you're gonna take a breakout, it's nice to do that on volume, knowing that that area that you're buying in is an area that more people are interested in. The more people are interested in that area, or the bigger of buyers that are there, they're more likely to protect that area. Or if more people are willing to buy there and it pushes it up higher faster, then you'll get the other people trying to buy in at a later price, or if it excites everybody else, they start to buy into, and it creates this rally attempt. So confirmation of price movement. Volume helps confirm the strength of price move. If a price change is accompanied by high volume, it suggests that a move is more significant and likely to continue. For example, if a stock breaks through a resistance level of high volume, it indicates strong buying interest. The second reason, identification of trends and reversals. Volume can be used to identify trends and potential reversals in an uptrend. Increasing volume may indicate that the trend will continue, while decreasing volume might suggest a weakening trend. Similarly, during a reversal, a sudden spike in volume could signal a change in direction. So going on to that, a reversal in a trend, you're gonna see a big blurb of volume, whether that's to the buy or sell side. You might see the, Dan, Bob, you were actually asking about blow off tops the other day. A lot of times you'll see all of a sudden there'll be this huge buy, this huge candle, and I was telling you that's the blow off top, meaning a lot of the bigger investors, the big guys who are ready to sell, what they'll do is they will take that opportunity and they will sell into that. So they'll see that up there and they'll sell into that. And we're going to go over a lot more, but we're going to hit you with the intro, baby. All right, guys, we are back. I almost forgot to do the intro, but hey, if I take time making an intro, we gotta throw it in there. So next is gonna be the support and resistance level, guys. Volume can help identify key support and resistance levels. When a stock approaches these key areas, high volume can indicate that many traders are paying attention. It's kind of what I was going on about when we first started in the very first example, about how more people are interested in that area, and it'll lead to more traders paying attention to that level, which can lead to stronger actions in these levels. So number 4, volume-based indicators. Indicators like the on balance volume, or OBV, on the volume weighted average price, or VWAP, that's something that we use. Use volume to provide additional insights into price trends, momentum, and fair value levels. So we don't go over fair value, but the reason why we use VWAP, as you guys can see right here on my purple line, this is the VWAP, or volume weighted average price. That's why I have volume weighted average price on here, because I want to know where the average person has bought this. The more volume there is at certain prices is going to plot this, meaning at the market open, the average price that this was bought on this 15-minute time frame was right here at 73.32, okay? So when this market opens, the longer this goes and the higher that these people are buying this price, the higher this VWAP is going to go. But the higher they buy it away from VWAP, the higher the price is compared to the average price that it was bought, okay? What's up, Zamora? It's good to see you in here. So that's why volume price analysis is so important. Now, a few things that I want to go over of why it's not so important, because I don't want everybody thinking volume is the know-all. I know great traders. I've listened to great traders through Investors Business Daily that say they don't even pay attention to volume because it messes them up. And here are a few reasons why. Low volume anomalies. If you guys are aware of it, I have brought up Anna Cooling's volume analysis. I forget the whole name of the book, but it's in our resource section. But it's by Anna Cooling, and it's how to interpret volume. And she goes over volume anomalies. I've brought up volume anomalies many, many times, where you'll see huge volume bars, but yet very small price movement. Those are volume anomalies, and it's hard to interpret which way the price is going to head with these anomalies. Okay. Another thing is too, well, I'll just finish reading. Sometimes price movement on low volume can still be significant, particularly in less liquid markets or during periods of low trading activity, like holidays or after-hour trading. These moves can be less reliable, but still impactful. So what this is saying is even though we don't see huge volume come in, that volume can still be impactful. That volume can still show that there's sustainable buying power in that stock, but because we didn't take it on volume, as there's a few examples I can give you after this, it still continues because it's still being traded. You don't have to particularly have very high volume to trade something when it goes through a breakout, but personally, I like it. I think it's nice. It's an added key piece of value to buying a stock, right? Price only analysis. Some traders and strategies focus solely on price action without considering volume. Price patterns, candlestick analysis, and other technical indicators can provide insight without the need for volume data. Now, I know there's some people out there listening to this at a later time that are like kind of squirming in their chair, like, no, no, you need volume. Like, I get it. Like, I'm that same person. I don't even like saying that, but we always have to recognize and understand there's more than one way to trade. Some people, and I've seen this, some people don't even use technical analysis to trade. They only use fundamentals. So do keep that in mind as well. There are many ways to trade, guys, okay? Next up, market-specific considerations. In certain markets, like Forex, volume data is not always available, okay? Or it's not even accurate because the decentralized nature of the market. In such cases, traders may rely on other tools and indicators like the VWAP. Noise in volume data. Now, this is a big reason why I call it dirty. Sometimes volume can be very dirty, okay? Noise in volume data. Volume spikes can sometimes be caused by factors unrelated to price trends, such as algo trading, algorithmic trading. I just have always called it algo trading. Algo trading or block trades, okay? Where these big block trades come in and they're trading from one block to another. These noises can make it difficult to interpret volume accurately. I have heard people constantly say, oh, they're turning on the algos. And what that means is there's certain things that happen in stocks and people flip a switch and they let their algorithmic, I'm telling you, we're going to have fun with this. The algos get turned on. And once those algos get turned on, it's almost like they can sense or they can see in the price action any buyer that is trying to over or underbid something, they wipe those traders out. And then once they see that those traders have sold, they run the price back up. So it's algorithmic. All right, I'm done trying to say it. Algo trading. Wow, I am so dense today. But
Look
yes.
at the chat.
What's that? Say that again.
Look at the chat.
Look at the chat. Hang on. All right. Open chat. Algorithmic. Am I saying it right now?
Yes.
I keep wanting to throw. I want to throw an M in before the R though. So my buddy Predator, he always helps me out in this chat. If you guys look at the very bottom of this page here, thank you, Predator. I gotta say, I don't have too difficult of a time pronunciating words because I've done a ton of reading in my day, a ton of reading. But for some reason, there's a couple of words that have came up, and Predator is always on it. Algorithmic. I always want to say because I keep saying algo, like algo trader, so algorithmic, but it's algo.
Yeah. Rhythm is the tricky part of the word.
Yeah.
That's Predator. Why. That's why I just break the word down.
Hey, you're a loser unless you're learning, right? I embarrass myself every day in front of you guys, but you know I love you. So thank you for helping me out with that. Algorithmic traders, okay, or algo traders, as a lot of people like to call it. That's how I've been calling it for 5-6 years now. So, okay, so we have went over why volume's good and why volume can be dirty sometimes, guys. Now, I am always the type that likes to take volume and at least use it for part of my trading. I have seen many times before where, you know, actually, I just got to bring up the trade. We're going to bring up the trade right now, and I'll just show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. One of the greatest setups this year was on RGS, and I didn't take it because the volume was not showing me it was not showing its head on the 5 minutes. So if we zoom out here, maybe I can actually bring it. There we go. So if you guys look here, when it broke out of this area, there wasn't a notable amount of volume that was worth taking. So it broke out right here. There was no volume. Like, look where this volume is. There was like no volume that was like significant enough for me to want to take this. I seen this huge volume bar right here, right? And we seen this, what is this? 5.1 thousand shares traded, but it's nothing like, it's nothing higher than over here, you know, or I'm sorry, that's 3.1K. Sorry, need to put some glasses on. But if you look over here, there's much higher volume traded before that push. And that's what I mean by volume can be dirty sometimes. It can do you dirty sometimes, right? This should have been a trade that I had taken, and I did not, because the setup was a 5-star setup. 5-star setup. If you look at this on the daily, I consider this a 5-star setup, and I'll show you exactly why. We get a big push up on much higher volume, 44.8 million shares traded. As it pulls back, it does a very nice job holding this 10-day moving average and getting tight, creating this really nice high tight flag, and then breaking out. But I always like to take these breakouts on volume. Look at the volume that day. It's just as much, if not lower, than the past week's trading. So that's why sometimes the data can be a little iffy. So I like to take it on higher volume just because it gives me that extra characteristic of why I feel comfortable taking it, okay? And there's many other trades. Like if we look at SHIP, for example, I love looking at SHIP at the base breakout right here. You know, on this 5 minute, when you were to take this right here, look at the volume, much higher volume. Very comfortable with taking that. You know, I like taking that. I like taking it on higher volume. And there's this right here is a big reason why I do it, you know, and then it pushes much higher. You know, you take some out at 2R, whether it's 1/8 or half, and then it continues higher. Now, here is the biggest example I want to show you. I took this today with you guys in the Discord. This was a beautiful trade. I'm up about $2,600 right now in total. And this was all taken within the first 5 minutes of the day. And the whole reason why I took this, guys, was because of the volume. Now, we did have some news on this in the pre-market. We can go over the news really quick, but I want to keep this all based on price action and volume. But here's PRTC. So what got me looking at the stock was that Danny and Sweet Jolene, thank you. Sweet Jolene brought this up, and they got me really thinking about this stock. So if we just go to the news here, let me scroll down and let's see. So it had this piece of news: U.S. FDA clearance for hydro-robotic systems. If you go on to reading this, they talk a lot about AI. They talk a lot about putting their system in a lot of different hospitals. They talk about how it's going to, revolutionize. Is it gastrointestinal or urology? It's based on urology. Sorry, not gastrointestinal, but it's based on a urology surgery, and they're using AI to help infiltrate what they need to help fix all the issues that are happening in there. So you get these key poppy words, right? AI, it's huge, it's big, it's bountiful, it's plentiful. If you put AI in front of anything, it starts to go up, right? Well, on top of that, also FDA approval. FDA approval's a huge one. So we have a catalyst there. Now I'm waiting for volume, because when we were watching this thing in the pre-market, look at this. There was zero volume being traded on this, okay? So what I was waiting for, and I was waiting for it on the 1 minute, because I wanted to see if there's no volume traded, like you can see here in the pre-market, I want to see volume being traded immediately. And that's the very first thing I seen. This 1 minute volume came in and it flipping skyrocketed, guys. It skyrocketed, and it got me excited right away. What I did is I just zoomed out and I said, well, look at this 1 minute volume candle. When's the last time it was trading this much volume in 1 minute? And this isn't earnings. This is on a piece of news, right? So then what I did is I zoomed out to the 5 minute, and I zoomed all the way out, and I looked at this, and this is where that bar was. It was at 100. And I said, wow, okay, so there hasn't been one candle that has been traded this high in weeks, let alone if I zoomed out to the 15 minute. This is what made me get in. I zoomed out to the 15 minute candlestick pattern, and I looked at this chart, and I just, I'll blow this up so you guys can see this a little bit better, and I'll zoom out over here. This is where the candlestick pattern is, okay? And if we were right here, and this, mind you guys, this was in the first probably 15 seconds of trading. The candlestick was right here at 99, between 99 and 100. And I looked over a 15-minute time frame, and the candles were still barely in comparison to what it traded in the first 15 to 30 seconds, okay? So on a 1 minute candlestick, I seen volume coming in to this stock that was absolutely unprecedented. There was nothing to compare the amount of volume coming into the stock. So I immediately bought. I bought 300 shares immediately right here, okay? Now we'll go back into the 5 minute, because this is where I usually look at the volume. All right, so here we are right here with a huge push up on volume, and I took 300 shares here at 72.31. Now, right after we just continued to climb and rised up here, I took out 100 shares immediately. I locked in profits, okay, because we were at 1R, okay? As you can see, if I use this low of the day right here, 3.4, at this area, I don't know the exact price, I'm not gonna look for you, but in this area I sold, which was 1R. I wanted to lock in my profits immediately. So I just took off 1/3 of this position. And yes, we can talk about, my buying or my selling, the rules behind that later, because I obviously could be up $4,000 right now, or depending. But I like to lock in my profits right away, guys. I had a bad trade the other day where I did not lock in profits right away. And when it came back down, I actually lost more than I intended to. Because I should have locked in profits. Instead, I took a full R loss. So I like to lock in profits right away and then let the rest ride. Because if this right here would have came down and stopped me out, I probably would have been closer to break even than I would have, taking a $300 loss. Okay. So keep that in mind. Locking in about $200, $250, something around there. Okay. In this area. And then what I did is I just left my stop at the low of the day. Okay. Instead of bringing it up, I just left it at the low of the day and I let this thing play out because I seen the volume. Now check this out. As I'm watching this on the 5-minute, you can see the huge volume on the push up, and as it starts to pull back, you can see it's on lighter volume. Now this is still crazy big volume, right? This is still a lot of volume compared to the previous days, but this volume is much, much lighter compared to the previous volume that just pushed it up 5 minutes ago, okay? So it starts to pull back on much lighter volume. Let me bring this up so it's a little bit bigger for you. So big push up on the 5-minute. The pullbacks are on much lighter volume here. Then it pops. It continues to sell off here, much, much lower volume. Look at that volume. That was like the volume that was traded from previous day. And then look at this. Huge volume again, pushing it back up, right? Pushing it back up. Now look, it trades sideways, lower volume. Decides to push up higher after retesting VWAP, guys. Volume weighted average price. When it came down and it touched that average price, and we've talked about this other case study that I have where I want to take trades after they have broke through anchored VWAP, they come back down and retest that anchored VWAP after it's already proven itself on the volume weighted average price. After it's already proved itself to have a lot more volume than average, right? It comes down, it tests that volume weighted average price, and then it takes off on much higher volume once again. We continue higher. I do not exit any more of this trade until right by the end of the day, somewhere around this area. I decided to end this, to take out half of those shares. Okay, so I'm only holding 1/3 of this left. We're up $2,608 and I still have $1,200 out there to let it run. I can let this run comfortably. I'm bringing my stop up to break even and I'm just gonna let it run. Now, why did I decide to get out half? Because look at the volume now. Towards the end of the day, I seen this candlestick here. This is what scared me, okay? This is a volume anomaly. As you can see on the higher volume pushes, you can see that there's a lot more volume pushing to the north side. This here is a volume anomaly because look how small this candle is, okay, compared to how big this volume is. This thing didn't move. So whether it's trying to sell off and being bought back up here, or whether it's trying to go higher and being sold off into, I don't know. I cannot interpret that. If you know somebody that can interpret this for me, let me know, because that would be almost like inside information, right? If they're buying, I want to be a part of that buying. I don't want to sell my trades. But when I see volume anomalies like this, I don't want to be a part. I don't want to just leave everything in there because this thing could just crash at the end of the day. So I get out what I feel comfortable with, what's going to help me sleep at night, and then I can let the rest ride. All right. So that was my thought on PRCT. Now I hope this was a good volume and price analysis for you guys. Do you have any questions on PRTC before I carry on?
Yes, I do too, as a matter of fact.
Sure, go for it, Dan Bob.
Let's go backwards. So start with that last one there, the last thing you were talking about, the volume anomaly there.
Sure. So
would
this
your level 2 data help you interpret what's going on there?
You could use the level 2 data. I have some issues with the level 2 data, and that's because of spoof orders. If you don't know what a spoof order is, it's where they bring up, they'll say, we're buying 100,000 shares right here. And then they'll just erase it before it gets there. So you might see here an order that comes in that they're going to sell at 85.31. And then you're like, whoa, they're selling over 100,000 shares right here. I need to get out because nobody's going to be able to get through that, right? And then when it comes up to it, they might pull it back. It's called a spoof order. So level 2 is pretty dirty. It's pretty dirty. You can use it, but you need to watch it all day, every day, okay? You could use time and sales, which is this little piece of action right here. You don't see it anything because the market's closed, but here time and sales will come up and it'll show what is actually being bought and what is actually being sold, but that is after it has already happened, right? So level 2, you're trying to see into the future a little bit. You're trying to see a little piece of data where there are people sitting on the books, but you don't know if those trades are real or not. And a lot of times when you have very high, very heavy volume, it's also hard to interpret because it's moving so fast. So I'm not really one to say, yes, you can or you can't in this particular situation with a volume anomaly, because I'm not as experienced as I would like to be able to give you a definitive answer on that. Okay, Dan, Bob?
I got you. Okay. So my second question is back to the anchored VWAP retest.
Ooh, okay, not anchored VWAP, but the VWAP. Anchored VWAP is a little different. But now that you said anchored VWAP, I do want to bring anchored VWAP up really quick. If we bring the anchored VWAP up on the 5-minute and we anchor the VWAP off the top of this, you can also see the retest right here, okay? So there was a retest on the anchored VWAP as well that was brought up by Swervo, which I thought was very cool. So we have 2 tests. We have an anchored VWAP of the highest volume traded on that 5-minute here, and we also have a test of the beginning of the day right here, okay? Which are pretty close to the same, because this volume is so high that if you're taking the average volume of this, you're taking the average volume of the day anyway. So what was the specific question? I'm sorry.
Is that a place where you could buy it at?
Oh, absolutely. Like I was telling you before.
Or even add to your position, maybe.
You could. Now, I think everybody's well aware, you guys know my trading well enough that I suck at adding. So I wouldn't add. If I put a position on, it's usually in full, and then I slowly reduce that position as I'm getting in the money, right? And then I try to always let a little piece ride and run until it either closes the 10-day moving average, or if we get up over 100%, then if it closes under the hourly 10. But right now, those are my sell rules, and I have to stick with that. But adding is a whole nother ball game. I'm telling you, some of the best traders add, guys. I'm not telling you not to add. I'm saying I suck at adding, so I just don't do it. You know what I mean? Yes, this could be a great place to add, and in hindsight, my dude, I wish I would have added. I wish I would have put that 100 shares back on here. You know what I mean? Especially, you know, with being at 72.33. But if you add here, that's going to bring your average up a little higher. And I wanted to ensure that I could continue to use this low of day at 70.02. I was comfortable with where I was at. I didn't want any more stress when I was trading this. So this is the whole reason why I took this. But yes, you could add here. You could just take the trade here, because look at this. Instead of dealing with all the stress and hoping that it would continue higher, even though the volume had my back and I was fairly certain that this was going to continue, I locked in profits as well. We could have waited. We could have just waited all day and said, wow, that's a ton of volume. I'm going to wait until it retests anchored VWAP, now you got me saying it. I could wait until it tests VWAP and then take this trade. And you could very well do that. And in this case, you could. There's many other cases, like I was looking at CING the other day. Now, this is a rip your face off stock, so you got to be careful. But look at this trade right here, guys. The volume came in right here in the morning. Look at that. Big volume comes in the morning, and then it shoots up. It's under VWAP. Boom. It shoots up above VWAP. It comes back down. Boom. It retouches that VWAP, and then look, it just takes off, right? And so, like, there's many, many ways. There's many ways to take this trade. I think this was one of them too. Yep, right here. So it's above VWAP, it breaks below. Then look, it gets above VWAP, it comes down, it retouches VWAP here, and then look at this explosion in price action. You know, on volume, on much higher volume too. You know, as it pulls back, it's pulling back on lighter volume. It's pushing through on higher volume. Obviously, the sell-off was on much higher volume. But then it gets stagnant, very low, and then you get volume that starts to come in, much higher volume that pushes you through, and lower volume on the retest. And then what happens after that? Boom, huge volume and price explosion. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You can definitely buy up on those retests. And I hope to have another series coming out, but like most people know, I'm working on the 5-minute trend and base breakout strategy in the 5-minute time frame. And I'm trying to also, maintain the daily and hourly trend and base breakout. So I'm working on something new right now. I don't want to get, if I see this show up and I'm not already in the trade, I will probably take something small just so I have some data that I can start collecting now rather than working on a whole new thing and then ditching something else. But eventually this trading group here will have, 4 or 5 different trades in our playbook, not just 2. Right now, I only recommend 2, because I know that they work. I've done the data. I've done the homework with Covey's help, of course. Great. He's helped me out through and through on that data testing. And now I'm doing the 5-minute. And the 5-minute's going to take me a while because I need to make sure I take plenty of data. So then this will be the next one. The retest will be the next one. But you definitely could take this trade. Any other questions before we carry on? I got one more I want to show you.
I want to add something there, if you don't mind, real quick.
Please do. You're more than welcome to.
I was kind of afraid that a lot of the questions were going to come up about adding eventually before we were prepared to deal with it. And I want to warn everybody. I know everybody's itching to try adding and all that stuff. Be aware, adding may not be a good strategy to use if your intention is to get out of a stock the same day.
Ooh,
now, what do I mean by that? If David were to trade or to get into a position today and he holds this overnight and adds tomorrow and gets out tomorrow, that whole trade counts as a day trade. So you got to be aware of that, because if your intention is only to put in a few trades a week to avoid like the PDT rule or anything like that, adding to your position and getting out on the same day you add makes the entire trade a trade day. This is why I said the other day in the chat, I was very clear about it. I do not recommend adding until Dave, Covey, and Danny have a look at this and see how they want to present this to the group, because there are some things that I failed to mention the other day intentionally because I just didn't want to get into this conversation. I know you guys know that I'm adding and I'm open about, that I'm doing that. But most of my additions are not occurring the same day, and neither are my exits. Yeah. Now that doesn't solve the problem, but I want you to be aware of that, because adding is also something that would have been good for this trade that Dave got in on PRCT, where it was a phenomenally good trade. But here's the trick. If you're going to get into a trade and you're going to attempt adding, you have to know as soon as you get into this trade where you're adding. So in hindsight, everything that Dave is showing us right now looks great. Yeah, he should have added here or he should have added there. But he didn't know that at the time because the trade didn't play out yet. So he would have had some foresight to think, if it gets to this point, I'm adding here, and this will become a rule set that he would follow come hell or high water, just like his regular rule set.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll leave it at that. If you have a question, you can feel free to ask, but I just want you guys to know that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, dude. It's a really good point. And I always like to just to further that is, if it's not part of your process or your plan, then don't do it. Just don't do it. Like I have in my Evernote, when I have everything written out like this, I usually have to make a section that says whether or not I'm allowed to add, because adding is a big deal, and we can bring up my strategy really quick. I started to write all this, and right now in my risk, it says no adding for now. I'm not allowed to add for now. The selling rules, I'm still really working on. This is how a process starts. And then plenty of examples, of course, And now I've even started adding to some base structures onto this as well, okay? But we are kind of going into some other stuff. That's my fault. But yeah, if it's not part of your, if adding's not part of your process or part of your plan before you start trading, then just don't do it. Next up is we're going to look at UPST. Now, I will be very honest with you. Originally, I thought UPST was going to fail. I did make some money shorting this, and as you can see, I just got really lucky because on this whole push up here, this thing, I shorted it this day and I made plenty of money. Took out half, and then the rest stopped me out for break even or damn near break even. But I have now, looking at price volume and looking at the action, and then also looking at today's base breakout on the 5-minute time frame, which again I'm still doing a case study on. you guys will see here why I took this, and you can also see the volume on this as well. So let me bring this up. I want you guys to be aware of the daily. We have a huge push up on volume, and now we are slowly and steadily going up on about average volume as it continues to press higher. So let me bring this up on the maximum sell. Right here, you guys can see that I've locked in about half of my profits. I've locked in about $320 of this, maybe a little less, maybe about $300. I'm up close to $600 for the day on this stock too. So overall today, I'm up a little over 6% in my account, which is a really good day. I would love to shoot for 10% a month. So getting 6% in one day, that really helps me relax, okay? So on this stock here, you can see we have this basing right here. And if we look at this, you see it starts off by failing, right? It starts to fail, but it starts to make this trend. This is an ascending trend line. And if we look and we dial in on the volume here, you can see on the base breakout area, when it tries to break out, it does it on higher volume. And then when I'm looking at this, right, I'm not even really taking this into account. But if we do now, we can see the push up on volume are much higher than the pull backs. See how it pushes up on volume and then it pulls back on lower volume like this, right? This looks like this, where you're pushing up on volume, and as it pulls back here, the volume's getting lower here, right? Then it pushes up again here. Look, it's on higher volume here. As it pulls back here, it's on lower volume here. So looking at this now, you know, like this is just a beautiful thing. Like each time it pushes, it's off of low volume and it's higher volume here. So then when we come up into this basing area right here, this is where I was actually really keeping an eye on this. So this is the basing area, and you can see when it starts to push up through here, it pushes up through on higher volume. I actually took this stock right here, okay? I have my stop set for break even. My last half is now set for break even, as you can see. But it pushes up through on higher volume, and it pulls back once again on lower volume, retesting the breakout area. Now, if you guys know anything about me, I love those retests. That's exactly what UPST did. I gave myself enough room initially. I used the previous higher low. Yes, the previous higher low. So here's a higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. I used this previous higher low originally as my stop loss. And that way it gives it enough room to retest the breakout area. And look what it did. It retested it on lower volume and it breaks out on higher volume. This thing pushed up much, much higher. You can see a big volume tried to pull this thing back. I wasn't even in front of the thing at this time, but it still continued to hold this 10-day on the 10-5 minute, and it held and then closed somewhere around here. I don't really remember. I took off half my shares because I wanted to lock in those profits. Same reason I did for PRCT or PRCT. So you can see that, you know, right there. Now, you can consider this a volume anomaly as well, because it's just an enormous volume candle right here. 374,000 shares traded in 5 minutes, and it only moved this small amount, you know, where if you added like these last 3 candles up here, they would be way bigger than this candle, you know, like even we could even measure it here. So that is 1.7%. And this is, am I getting that right? 5%, you know? Am I getting that right? Let me just double check for you guys really quick. 1.25, yeah. So it took about, you know, these 3 here tall, which is much, much higher than this, to equal out to the same amount of volume as that. It's just like, that's basically a volume anomaly right there. But what I like to see is small candles to be considered volume anomalies. But this, like, what's happening here? You know, what's happening here? With this much volume, you would think this thing would just shit all the way back down to where it started to take off, you know? Zamora says, we love you too in the chat. Thank you, Zamora. I really appreciate that. I love seeing your face here every day. You're awesome. And UPST. Yeah, UPST, a cup of coffee. Yeah, that's right. A cup of coffee's on me in the morning, guys. You guys know it. If you guys had a big win, I expect a cup of coffee in the morning, but tomorrow morning the cups of coffee are on me. But don't ask for creamer. I'm going to flip the table and freak out. Good times, good times. Okay, but that's all I have on volume and price analysis. One little thing I just want to touch on before I let you guys go is that I always like to keep an eye on the volume at breakouts area. Always keep in mind though too that volume is not always everything. I cringe saying that, but it's price action. Okay, price always pays. You guys are always going to hear me say that. You're going to hear a lot of the greats saying that. Some of you are reading Brian Shannon's Anchored VWAP right now. That's one thing he preaches. He says the only thing that pays is price. William O'Neill has the same saying somewhere in here that, you know, price is what pays, guys. All the greatest traders say this, and I regurgitate this over and over again. It doesn't matter what the volume is telling you if it's not paying you, right? If you're saying, well, the volume's saying that this stock should still be going up, and it's coming back on lower volume here, and you know the stock should still be going up. Well, if the stock is not going up, and it hits your stop loss, then it hit your stop loss, and you're done trading it. You know, it's the price action. Price action paired with volume. So volume and price action, that's what pays. That is the main thing. Then if you add on layers of fundamentals and maybe your favorite indicator like VWAP, you know, which VWAP is just a derivative of price action, and you know all the technical analysis. And if you want to throw in some candlestick patterns and stuff like that, but just keep it simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Because if you overdo these things or you overthink these things and you make it complicated, you're going to end up tripping over your own feet. So pick one strategy, focus on price analysis and volume, and you guys will have an awesome strategy. Do you guys have any questions for me before we call it quits?
I do. Can you go back to PRCT, please?
I would be happy to. I'm like,
while we were talking here, I was setting up my my VWAP, make sure I set it up properly.
Sure.
So I have according to my chart, I had that retest at 1050. Is that correct?
1050.
Is that right? Yes.
7456.
You
You said PRCT. Are you talking UPST? No, you said PRCT.
Yeah, PRCT.
All right. So check your price.
74. I get like 74.85.
74.85 on yours?
Yes.
That's close enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Mine's
Prior to that,
saying
there was a
74.50.
retest also at, there was when it's on lower volume right now. Yeah, a little bit. So there was also a retest at
74.14.
10.
74.24.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, back here.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's a red candle. So should I be concerned about the color of a candle when we're talking about volume? Or is volume just volume?
Volume's volume. It's hard for me to explain to you why sometimes you'll get a volume candle that is red, but the prices went up higher. It's hard for me to explain that. I can't work around that. It is something that does happen though. I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen it happen a lot of times.
What's that?
I've seen that happen quite a few times.
Oh, sure. Especially in like the daily time frame, you'll see that. And I think it's because it's taking account in for pre-market, and that might have something to do with it. I'd have to look more into that, Dan. But when it comes to like these retests, because you're specifically asking a question about a retest, like I've said before, so far the way I understand a retest is that if the volume is there and you already want the stock because you see the volume is higher than normal and it has broken through VWAP, the buy doesn't matter anymore. You want the buy, so you're waiting for the test. It doesn't matter if it tests on lighter volume or not. If you're buying the retest, you're buying the retest. But you need to have it in a logical area where you can either use the low of the day or you're comfortable with using, 10 cents or the previous candle before, like say you wanted it here, and I'm just giving you a bullshit example. Like I said, I've not back tested any of this, but if you see this breaks through, right? and it comes down and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to buy somewhere in this area, and you buy, your stop will have to be in a logical area. Is this your logical area right here? If it is, then that's your logical area and that's your stop. But you just have to understand that, you know, if your retest is way up here, right, and this is your retest, where's your stop going to be? You know, is it the previous retest? Is it the low of the day? You know, what's logical? And then eventually, you know, you're taking ADR percentages over the average daily range, which on this case is 5.8%, you know? So you have to take all that into account when you're playing these retests and stuff like that. But usually when I'm thinking of a retest on volume, the volume doesn't matter on the retest. The volume is what mattered to make you want to be a part of this stock. Does that make sense?
Okay, it does. I got that.
What you got, Jimmy?
Yeah, it makes sense. Real good sense.
Cool, man.
That's hot.
Do we have any other questions, guys? No? All right.
They let me be stupid and ask all the questions.
No, dude, I think you have awesome questions, and honestly, I really appreciate you asking, guys. I want you guys to know I really do appreciate Dan Bob asking these questions, because there's, you know, after you've been doing certain things, and I always use jujitsu. Like, I have a black belt instructor. He's 50 something years old, right? 52, 53 years old, and he will teach you how to do, for example, a bow and arrow choke, right? And I remember when I was a white belt, he was like, yeah, you just do this and you reach around the neck and then you grab the pant leg and you lean back and you choke them out. And for some reason, I just could not lean back and I could not choke them out, right? And I'm just like falling to my butt, or my legs would go in a weird way and I just couldn't do the choke, right? And finally, after his third time of watching him do this, I noticed when he would grab the collar and grab the pant leg, he would do this thing, what we call in jiu-jitsu is a wind wipe. He would take his legs, and instead of them being right behind his butt, he would kick them off to the side, so that way his butt fell over his legs and he wasn't falling back onto his legs. Simple things like that, he doesn't recall to reteach because that's natural to him. There's a lot of things I'm doing in trading or when I talk that I just assume people know that I don't realize it. So when Dan Bob's asking these questions, there's good reason for it. It helps me sharpen my steel and sharpen your steel. Steel sharpens steel, okay? And so I want everybody to feel comfortable in the Discord to ask questions, because it's only gonna help you and it's only gonna help me, okay? So I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate all the questions, and I appreciate you guys showing up to help better yourselves tonight. Is there any more questions? All right. If not, or if you have another question, just throw it up in the general chat. If I don't get to it and somebody else understands it, we'll always be here for you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have an amazing night. Let's have a good trading. Oh, tomorrow's Thursday, guys. 8:30 is going to be the initial jobless claims data. It's going to come in. I'm going to interpret it and do a YouTube short on it really quick, but you're going to see it quickly. You're going to see it happen in the price action. You're going to see the volume come in right away. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I promise you, if we have a higher than expected initial jobless claims data coming in, the market's probably going to head down, okay? That's my best guess, just from analyzing it over the past couple of years, okay? With that being said, join me for the Jerome Powell speech that's happening on Friday at 10. I'll be here live at 9, and I would love for everybody to be in here with me, hanging out with me live on Friday for a few hours, and we can listen to what old Papa Powell's got to say. All right? I hope you guys have a good night. Peace.
Before you guys leave,